Hello and welcome everyone. I welcome you all to today's daily quiz. This is 3rd of December 2025. I hope you have all read the day's important news stories. So let's see if you were able to remember most of it or not. Today I have 7 questions for you. Do attempt all of these and tell me in the comment section how many of these did you manage to get right. Let's begin with the first question of the day. India's recent debt market review highlighted a rise in duration risk for government securities. What does high duration risk imply? So, what is the meaning of this term? High risk duration. Bond prices become less sensitive to interest rate changes. Second, duration risk affects only short term treasury bills. Third, a small rise in yields causes a disproportionately large fall in the market price of long term bonds. This is a big problem. See, when the government wants to raise money from the market, they offer government securities in exchange of which they actually take money from you. Now, if they are very long duration, that means in the long term, the bond will now affect the government, because now by the time that the government has to give the money back, by that time the government will have to pay a lot of money back, because the value of the yield would increase, and if the yield increases, that is the money that the government has to pay back, it will be a heavy load on the government. That will lead to fall in the price of the long term bonds as well. The answer here thus is B. Moving on to question number 2. The recently updated geological survey dataset identifies the Koyna-Varna region, again Koyna-Varna region, as one of India's most studied zones for reservoir-induced seismicity. This region lies in which physiographic division? So again the question is, the Koyna-Varna region lies in which division exactly? The options are here: Eastern Ghats, the Deccan Volcanic Province, Aravalli Range, or the Sivalik Foothills. Again, the question was about the Koyna-Varna region. Where does it lie? The answer here is it lies in Deccan Volcanic Province. The term seismicity was a good indication for you to answer this question. This is a hotspot for seismicity, means hotspot for induced earthquakes. That is where this particular region actually lies. Moving on to question number 3 then. A state government re-promulgates the same ordinance multiple times without passing a law. Which constitutional principle applies most strongly here? First, executive can issue ordinances as many times as needed. Ordinances have become permanent laws after 2 reissues. Re-promulgation of ordinances undermines the legislative supremacy and violates the constitutional morality, or the courts cannot examine the frequency of ordinance issues. Now, ordinance has always been a touchy issue in India, both at the center and the state government, where the executive issues the ordinance to surpass the supremacy of the legislature, to try and make the laws on their own. This violates this principle. Re-promulgation of ordinances time and time again undermines the supremacy of the legislature. It is the job of the legislature to make the law, not the executive. This is why the answer here is B. This was also a matter discussed in the DC Wadhwa case, where the Supreme Court said re-promulgation of same ordinance will not be allowed. It will be unconstitutional. Next, question number 4. The latest wildlife corridor mapping shows an increase in elephant movement across the Anshi-Dandeli landscape. This landscape lies primarily in which state? So the question is about Anshi-Dandeli landscape. In which state does it lie? Is it Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, or Odisha? The Anshi-Dandeli landscape, it is mainly in Karnataka. These kind of questions are extremely commonly asked by the UPSC. Whatever important areas in the news with respect to environment, wildlife, species, etc., they do tend to ask these questions, so do keep a note of these as well. Moving on then to question number 5. India is experimenting with zero trust architecture in government digital systems. Which principle lies at the core of zero trust architecture? First, all devices inside the network are automatically trusted. It's the opposite of it. The perimeter firewalls alone can prevent breaches. Trust is never assumed. Every access request must be authenticated, authorized, and continuously validated. Yes, this is what is zero trust architecture. That no device or no device connected to a network of the government will be automatically presumed to be trustworthy. All these devices, it doesn't matter which person is using it, doesn't matter how many times it has been used earlier, will need to be authenticated every single time and authorized every single time. This is called zero trust architecture. The answer thus is B. Moving on to question number 6. A new trade analysis shows a rise in India's import intensity of exports. Understand? Import intensity of exports in certain manufacturing sectors. What does it indicate? India exporting more raw materials, domestic value addition has increased, larger portion of export value depends on important components and intermediate goods. India's exports have become insulated from global supply chains. Now, let's understand this. India has been making a lot of mobile phones. Increasingly, the mobile phone manufacturing in India has been increasing. But one criticism is that most of the components are actually being imported. Screens, battery, etc., all of that is imported. We just assemble that in India. So that is why even though we sell a lot of these mobile phones, a lot of money doesn't stay in India, because that value of the phone being exported depends upon what we are importing. Screens, batteries that are being imported from China. This is called as import intensity of export. So our exports are dependent on how much we are importing. The answer thus is B. A large portion of export value depends on imported components and intermediate goods. It's seen in a very big manner in mobile phone manufacturing, specifically in India. Then the last question for the day is question number 7. Recent ASI, Archaeological Survey of India documentation, highlights Persian influenced stucco motifs at Bidar. Bidar was the capital of which medieval kingdom? Pretty simple, straightforward. You would have read in medieval history. Bidar was the capital of which medieval kingdom? Is it the Bahmani Sultanate, the Gajapati kingdom, the Yadav dynasty, or the Kakatiya dynasty? Bidar, famous for its silverware work or silver work even today. This was the capital of the Bahmani Sultanate. This is the answer. I'm sure you would have all read this in your medieval history. This brings me to the end of today's quiz. I hope you got most of the questions right. Do tell me in the comment section how many did you get right. Also, I am launching very soon Prelims 2026 Current Affairs course along with the test series that will be included in it. I'll be sharing the details very soon. Stay tuned for that as well. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Jai Hind.